Hi, I'm Bob Sambol, and I usually say from Bob's Steak and Chop House, but we're all from Bob's Steak and Chop House. And this is a rare conversation, a very rare conversation, with Silvio Carbone and Monte Morris, who, between the both of them, have 40 years of managing a Bob's. And this is a unique time where we all three of us get to reflect on our history with this great brand. And when I say a great brand, I mean it. We have 6 locations in DFW. No one has more. We've been around, longer, as long as anybody who has that many units. So we're a pretty powerful brand, and we're powerful because of, and I know you, I really mean this, guys like you who have been representing the brand for all these years and have taken it to just, one good restaurant to now you in Plano, you in Grapevine. There are institutions in those towns. So Silvio, first of all, how did you get started in the business? I never really knew that story.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us today.
You got it.
Appreciate it. I grew up in a large Italian family, and I got to tell you the truth, I think the restaurant business was in me when I was born. We'd have a Sunday lunch, I'd be 20 to 30 people. It was done around passion and volume and food and just courses, and that really got me started. Then as soon as I could, I got in the bar business, the Wallingford Country Club.
And where was this?
That was in Wallingford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And then next thing I know, I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, working out of Fridays, having fun, working really hard, and just traveling the country, learning as much as possible. Worked in country clubs, worked in dinner theaters, worked in hotels, moved to Dallas from Las Vegas, and it's been quite a ride.
So if I remember right, before you went to Bob's, you were at Star Canyon.
I was.
Which was a very successful restaurant with Stephen Piles. And then we'll talk about him later. I think Bill Lennox met you and talked you into taking the job up here in Plano.
Yeah.
And you came right after we opened.
It was a absolutely great experience. I was a manager out in Las Vegas in the Venetian Hotel, had a great time out there. And we had another property here in Dallas, Star Canyon, way back in the day. And it was rocking and rolling. We were nice and busy. And we sold that restaurant. We sold both restaurants. And I'm going to take a little bit of time off. And next thing you know, I get a call about an opportunity over here. And I got to tell you, when I moved to Texas and I started working at the Star Canyon, there were 2 names I heard: Bob Sambol and Al Burnett. They were the restaurateurs of restaurateurs. So I always thought the concept was fascinating. I thought working with you would be absolutely fascinating. And here we are almost 23 years later.
Wow.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
So Monte, we've known each other a long time, and I know a little bit about your history. So where did you grow up? Where did you start in the business?
I grew up in West Texas, a place called Cisco, Texas. And most of my young childhood was cattle business.
Wow.
So I'm on the other end of the cow now. And glad to be there. My siblings are both cattle ranchers, and I've always sworn that I'm the smarter of the siblings. I work about 25 hard hours a week. They work 24/7. So that's proof in the pudding. But I lost a bet. A good friend of mine asked me to get into the business with him, and I felt like I lost a bet, but I was leaving Austin and the University of Texas to go on the road with Men's Clothing Line. And a good friend of mine asked me to go into the restaurant business with him for the only reason that he could trust me in the till. So I went into the restaurant business without an ounce of knowledge about what you guys have done. And I fell in love with the business, and I've been there ever since. I thought, what is something that everyone's going to want to need for the rest of their lives? And it was food and beverage. So in a down economy, we work well. In an up economy, we work even better. So I stuck with the business. This is my 65th restaurant in 48 years.
Wow. Wow. So you both get started in the business, get the job at Bob's. Silvio, you came shortly after we opened here. And tell me about the first few years and what were some of your challenges and what were some of the things that you were surprised that weren't as challenging, because I know this restaurant always did a fair amount of business and never really struggled. But you walk in, we had a little couple of mishaps with the first couple of people we hired, and we hire you. You brought a lot of stability. So tell us about those first few years and why you thought that, I know you believed in the concept because of the way you acted, for sure, What made you believe in it? What did you see that said, you know what, I'm in the right place?
Well, when I started early on, first of all, the core you started many years ago, this restaurant couldn't do anything but be successful. The core steak and chop house in Texas, Texas is made for it. This place is made for it. Plano was made for it. It was ready for it. It wanted it to be successful. So, like you said, maybe a couple missteps early, but when we got in here, I realized if we kept the cold food cold and the hot food hot, that was the core to everything.
Yeah.
People were friendly. The community was inviting. It was growing like everything up in North Texas. We couldn't miss. Just give great, comfortable service night after night. Make sure every plate is exactly what you'd serve a family member, and I think you'll be all right. And before you know it, the community does become a family member, and you kind of develop from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Monte, you opened Grapevine, and Grapevine opened with a bang. I mean, it was a pretty good success right off the bat. And so, in the beginning there, did that community, which was a little farther from the original location, tell us about that.
When I got back from Colorado to do the project, we had 5.5 acres of property there that was mesquite and barbed wire. And I thought, why is there open acreage on Main Street 2.5 miles from the airport? Something's got to be wrong here. And I didn't know we would get our guests, our employees, in a rural, wasn't rural, but suburban area at the time. And as soon as we built the parking lot, I knew we were going to be a vibrant restaurant. So the communities accepted us, and I think you told me yourself that when we opened Grapevine that you lost 20% of your sales to us.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that people were driving 22 miles to see you from our area for a good steak. But the more I talked to our guests, the more that I realized that we were able to be established right off the bat because of Bob's name in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great success from the start, and you certainly have taken it to the next level and beyond. Now, we're unique is that we're closed on Sundays, we're dinner only, great lifestyle for us. Yeah. We all agree that it's helped us keep employees long term. So tell us about your typical day.
Typical day, I get up, I'm an early riser, probably around 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I want to take in as much.
Late.
I know. Well, I'm not as experienced as you guys.
You're not as old as me.
The first thing I do is really take in a lot of information as far as news. I know I'm going to have a lot of conversations every night, and I want to know what's going on locally, nationally, on the finance side of business, sports. My goal is to get as well-rounded as current events as possible because I want to use everything in my arsenal to keep conversations at night. So that's how we start. And then next thing you know, we come into the restaurant and we start welcoming the vendors, start welcoming prep people, and start making sure everything we touch when it comes in the back door is great quality, and make sure we don't screw it up throughout the day.
Yeah.
The prep people and the cooks that come in and the dishwashers, make sure everybody's ready, focused, and know exactly what the plan is for the day. And then it kind of unravels from there. And then 5 o'clock, the party starts.
Showtime.
Yeah, it's showtime. You know, I tell the folks, our staff, the lights don't go down, the curtain really goes up, and we just have we're hosting a bunch of friends at our house.
Yeah, that's great. You know, my dad, when I opened Bob's, and he knew it was going to be a masculine steakhouse, and he said, "Son, you gotta know how to talk about 3 things in this kind of restaurant: sports, business, and I'll clean this up, ladies." And he's right. That's what we need to talk about. Yeah. That's what people ask us about.
Right.
That's what they bring up, and it never changes. It really doesn't. Now, I know your typical day probably is pretty much like Silvio's. You're an early riser. You're get after it to the restaurant guy.
My first conversation with you, Bob, you said that if I showed up at the restaurant before 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something's wrong with the business.
I knew he was going to say
I
that.
didn't follow that.
Oh, thank God you didn't follow me on that.
Once again, coming back from Colorado, I started looking at our competition, and the competition wasn't coming in until 2. And no one was answering phones, and no one was taking deliveries. And I said, I'll put these people out of business. So we show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're on phones, and we're taking reservations and prepping the building. And I do the setup, and I look at every detail on food and repairs and maintenance and the aesthetics of the building. And we do a long review on the VIPs coming into the building, or all of our diners. to get a little background on them. And then we prep the staff with all what our features of the day is and what guests we have coming in and what their celebrations are. So that's the majority of the preset, and then get into the shift. I probably do 90% table visits in our restaurant just to get a feel for where they're from, how they found us, what they like about the place, and what we can do to improve.
You know, it's funny, a lot of our competitors don't answer the phone anymore during the day, which I love.
I love it.
I love it when we had someone who calls up and says, yeah, I try to call so-and-so and there's no one answers the phone. But we're a little old school, and we from 9 o'clock in the morning, we have people answer the phones, or we answer the phone. And it's amazing to me that some restaurants just don't think it's good. They don't think they have to have a phone.
You know, not only that, Bob, but perfect example today with Kimberly at our front desk. We've had the same person answering the phone for the last 23 years. Not many people can say that.
Well, one thing Kimberly probably doesn't know is that, we've been lucky. We've gone through about 4 or 5 day hosts. And I always say, you want to know exactly how to answer the phone, call Plano. So I have them call here and hang up to just copy what Kimberly says, because she says the same thing exactly every time.
Yeah.
So, you know, listen, anytime there's an employee that stays at a restaurant for a long time, it's not an accident, it's leadership. It's not only they got trained properly, they got supervised properly, and you're attuned to what they need, and that's why they stay. And we're all three of us blessed with employees that have been with us a long time.
I heard a story once that the industry standard nationwide, the turnover rate is 300%.
Yeah.
And our turnover rate's probably 25%. And the longevity of our staff means the longevity of our guests. Our guests come in and they're recognized.
Absolutely.
And they're valued guests by our staff because they know how often they frequent the place.
Yeah.
And they kept us alive during 08 and 09 and during COVID.
Yeah.
You know, I tell our staff, since I've been here, I don't think I've made a drink. I don't think I've ever waited on a table. It takes a lot of people to have a successful culture and run a successful business.
Well, I tell people if they come into Bob's and they say, "Where's Bob?" and they tell them I'm back in the kitchen, they need to leave because it's not a good night to eat there. If I'm back there, because I can make one steak at a time, but I don't think I can do 3 or 4 or 6 at once.
I don't know how to answer the question when people ask if I'm Bob.
You just say you're not as good looking. I'm not as good looking as Bob.
No, I say I'm better looking than Bob. And a better operator, by the way.
Yeah, a much better operator, yeah. One thing Bob's can brag about is regulars. We have this incredible, you have yours, and I know that because every once in a while, your regulars, you know, kind of explore another Bob's, and they say, you know, I'm a regular at Plano, Silvio knows just what I like, and they already set us up, you know, for failure. But so what do you think is the one thing that creates that, or if you had to teach a new manager why, if he asks, how come you have so many regulars? What, obviously food and service, but what is that other thing that makes them come here?
I think it's consistency. They walk in the door, they're going to recognize people off the get-go. They are treated special. And if they've never been here before, they're still treated special. There's no secret to it. They come in, we know where they want to sit, what they're celebrating. We know their kids' names. We know what they're here for. And the small details are not too small for us.
Yeah.
We just really pay attention to the little things.
But what I tell my longtime employees is, don't misunderstand a regular. They're not our friends.
Yes.
They're our regulars. And the minute we stop giving them good food and good service, they're not our friends or regulars anymore.
Yeah.
So just, you know, they might ask you about your dog and your daughter, but really they're here to have a good meal and have good service. So just always remember that.
And it's amazing how when you're a Bob's regular at Lemon Avenue, that's the only good Bob's.
Yeah.
And when you're a regular at Grapevine, nobody else could compare to the Bob's and Grapevine.
Are they buying the same meat as you?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's absolutely fantastic, the loyalty
Yeah.
they have to not only to the brand, but their location.
Yeah.
I think that's what does and always will set Bob's apart from other brands.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You know, you've got a lot of them up there, and every once in a while in fact, your famous one is the young lady who sits at the bar all the time.
Kelly Wheeler.
Yeah, Kelly.
Yeah.
She comes down, when she goes to the Stars game, she comes down to Bob's, and she makes sure everybody knows I'm a grapevine person, so just so you know, and we do our best, but you know, I don't know if it's good enough.
Yeah, I see a lot of my regulars taking pictures with you though, Bob. I'm concerned.
I do make sure I give all the men a golf shirt,
Yeah,
the golf shirt, so that, and I tell them they got to do me one favor: wear the shirt when you go to Grapevine, and say, Monty, Bob gave me this shirt, and so just to kind of embarrass you.
Sheer
if I can.
bribery.
Yeah, sheer bribery, exactly.
We're about to lease all of our regulars' cars. We're going to lease them all cars. We have to compete with Bob. Everybody gets a car. It's like Oprah. Everybody gets a car.
I discount meals to everybody.
Okay, Monty, if you have a young manager walks in your door and says, I want to work for you, what is the one or two things you say to him to make sure that he's your guy?
Well, the first thing I look for in not only a management but any employee, and you can determine right away, are you a better giver than taker? And I'm always looking for someone that's willing to give more than take. I'm not looking for greedy people, and I'm looking for subservient people. And I know that's a crazy word in our industry anymore, but we are subservient to what people's needs are. And I think that guests recognize that right away, but I've got a very wholesome team that are subservient to what people's needs are. And I think that it's kind of a lost art anymore. I might even ask them to spell hospitality because a lot of people in our industry don't know it anymore. So our staff is very hospitable, and they try to fetch any of the needs that our guests have. New guests, old guests, all the same.
Yeah, it's hospitality, it's not service. Good service is what you get when you get your oil changed. But hospitality is what you get in a restaurant. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. And so a young man comes to you, and I know you look at him and say, you know, well, young man, what have you done? This and that, why do you want to do this?
I want to find out if they're really, truly ready to work very hard, very long.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut to it. Mm-hmm. It's not something, it's not as glamorous as it looks sometimes when you come in, we're open 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and people think it's just a big show. It takes a lot of hours for those 4 to 5 hours we're open. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and the details, they are overwhelming at times. And we might be open from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, but it's really 24/7. You're answering texts, you're taking reservations, you're from random questions. It's all the time. And if you're not available truly all the time, I don't know if you're ready for that part of the business.
No. And you know, has the guest changed in all your years?
I think the guests have changed. I think the dining habits have changed, especially since COVID. I think it shifted everything about an hour earlier. We used to have the 9 o'clock, 9:30 reservations. People want to eat between 6 and 7 nowadays. It has changed. Another thing that's changed, you can get a great steak at a grocery store nowadays. Mm-hmm. 10, 20 years ago, you couldn't get a Wagyu filet at a grocery store. And people are more equipped at home to cook better. They're more skilled at cooking. So when they come to a restaurant and they're going to spend top dollar, you really have to go out of your way and make it special. Mm-hmm. It's not always about a great steak. We do have great, consistent steaks, but there's so much more involved. There's the nuance of, like you said, Monty, hospitality and doing it properly. And I think that's our strike zone. I think that's where we might excel a little bit. Our consistency and our strive to be excellent every single night. There's no detail too small.
I don't think my guests have changed. And I say that because I'm in a suburban market and I see a lot of families. And I know that in an urban market, you may have a see and be seen crowd that dine out maybe for more frequently than a suburban area, but the suburban market hasn't changed for me. I think that the guests are looking for a good value and a wholesome environment and an environment they can feel safe, and I think that we try to provide that along with good food and good service.
We couldn't have this conversation without talking about Bill Lennox. Bill was my original partner. When I left the brand for a while, Bill oversaw it and was the guardian of it. And I wasn't as experienced as I am now to appreciate what a great partner Bill was, but I know he hired you. He spent a lot of time with you, and he was a great guy, wasn't he? And I love Bill. You know why? Bill wasn't a restaurateur. He was a frequent restaurant diner who truly loved to eat and drink, mm-hmm. and loved our brand and was relentless on keeping the standards exactly the way they should. Exactly. Don't you agree?
The stamina for the brand that gentleman had, and the quality And for me, I was lucky enough to work very close with him for a very long time. So besides being a friend and someone I cared about deeply, his passion for business and for a drink and for a food and for anything, every bite mattered, every experience mattered, every light bulb mattered, everything mattered all the time. And the amount of energy he took to the business, his business sense, and the conversations I've had with him through the years,
They're great.
absolutely fantastic. And really, truly miss him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a good guy. He affected all of us, and like I said, I wish I could turn back the clock and have him back. And he's turned over the reins to his wife Marilyn, who just is a dear lady who deeply cares about the brand and wants us all to succeed very much. So we're all fortunate. We really are to be in the position we're in. I want to thank both of you guys for while I was gone for a little while. You upheld the brand as good or better than I could have, and it wouldn't be what it is without both of you guys. So Silvio,
Thank you for
Monte, I know this is a little bit out of your realm of what you usually do every day, but you guys were really, really good at this. And so when I retire, I think both of you should take over and maybe do like a comedy, deal together.
I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to work that hard.
Am I in the will?
Yes, you are in the will. Yes, you are in the will.
Can I tell a story about Bob?
Oh
Can
no. Go ahead.
What, I'd been going to Bob's even as a competitor for a long time, and I finally got the opportunity to work with you through Bill.
Yeah.
He brought me in. Bill was an investor with some of my projects before we got together. I met Bill when I was doing another steakhouse, and he came to the steakhouse and said, "I'm the owner of Bob's Steak and Chop House." And I said, "No, you're not." but I found out later he was a strong partner, and he always was a strong partner with us. But my first day at Bob's, Lemon Avenue, I walked in and I thought, Bob's a genius. This place is ancient. This building's been around forever, but it looks like brand new. And I thought, if I picked up a copper penny off the side of the road and I polished it up a little bit, it would look brand new. And that's what was akin to me to Lemon Avenue. So you've done a great job down there.
Well, that building is 80 plus years old. It was Del Frisco's, and before that it was Mario's. And Silvio and I were talking before the filming of the challenges I have with the building, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It just has so much character, and people love it, and the stories about their grandfather and their father, and now their kids coming to it. So, gentlemen, this was the best. This was certainly a rare conversation with the three of us together in one spot. So thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.